Wesley Studies of Asbury Theological Seminary, or Professor of Theological, I'll get this right, Professor of Historical Theology and Wesley Studies at Asbury Theological Seminary. He's got lots of books, and we're going to talk about this brand new book that he's got out. Welcome, Ken. Welcome to Today's Issues.
Thank you. I'm glad to be here, and I'm very appreciative of the fine work that the American Family Association does. As a matter of fact, I think that Tim's daughter went to Asbury Theological Seminary, if my memory serves me right.
Yeah, a few years ago, that's correct. And my dad, Don Wildman, has an honorary doctorate degree from Asbury.
That's wonderful.
Yeah, he got
That's
it the same day that Robbie Zacharias did a few years ago. And we have several of your graduates here on our staff.
That's
too.
wonderful.
So we highly recommend, if you've got a young person getting ready to go to college, to consider Asbury.
Or seminary, right.
Yeah, Asbury, the seminary, or you got a liberal arts school too, right?
We have a university, Asbury University, and then Asbury Theological Seminary, and I teach at the seminary.
Gotcha. Well, let's talk about your book. Your book is titled Power, Politics, and the Fragmentation of Evangelicalism. And it's published by InterVarsity Press. We always look forward to getting the books from InterVarsity Press because they're a very reputable publisher, and I'm sure you know that. That's the reason you went with them, and they went with you.
That's right.
On your book. Power, Politics, and the Fragmentation of Evangelicalism. Where do you want to start with this?
Oh, where do I want to start? Maybe the reason why I wrote the book.
Go ahead.
And the reason I wrote the book is that I looked out on the evangelical community, especially in North America, and I saw them beginning to make some of the same mistakes that mainline liberals had already made. And so I knew I had to raise a warning signal.
Now, just to distinguish for the purposes of our conversation today, the different groups within Christendom, you have what's been known as the mainline denominations in the past. That would include like the United Methodist, the Episcopalians, the Presbyterian Church USA,
Lutheran Church in America.
Yes, those groups, and then those denominations have been hemorrhaging for the last 25 years in their membership, and I think it's primarily because of the drift toward liberalism. But then you have the other groups, which are called evangelicals, within Protestant Christianity I'm talking about here.
Yes,
which would be, I guess, your Southern Baptist, your Assemblies of God, your independent Bible churches, etc. Right?
Yes, that's right.
Okay, so but and a lot of evangelicals are members of independent churches nowadays. That's just kind of...
That's right. They may be parts of large mega churches, or they may belong to smaller evangelical denominations, and so evangelicals are well dispersed throughout American denominations.
So the evangelical movement, though, has been pretty powerful in its speaking to politics, going back 30 years or so, and it's basically been a movement inside the Republican that votes Republican and for the most part, but you can occasionally find evangelical dealings inside the Democrat Party, especially on a state level. But anyway, what do you mean by the fragmentation of evangelicalism?
What I mean by that, and this is the same mistake that mainline denominations had made, is that some evangelicals now are beginning to attach basically ultimate importance to their political judgments or their particular conceptions of social justice, and they're putting them in first rung where they simply don't belong. And so the Catholicity of the gospel is something greater than our various political judgments. And so I see a fragmentation of evangelicalism happening in the same way that there's been a fragmentation in large mainline denominations.
And you think I was correct in my analysis of why mainline Christian denominations in this country have been losing influence and membership because of their...
Well, I'd like to help here a bit. I mean, you mentioned that they turned towards liberalism. Well, let's put some meat on that. What does that mean? What does that actually mean? And as a historian, I think I can contextualize that a bit. I think at the end of the 19th century into the beginning of the 20th, mainline denominations basically gave up the intellectual ghost. They decided they were not going to offer a rigorous, thorough intellectual defense of the Christian faith any longer in the wake of the higher criticism of the Bible, in the wake of evolutionary theory, and they moved their justification or their substantiation of Christianity over to ethics, to morality and ethics, and then to social ethics, and then, as it's played out in the 20th century, a particular brand of social ethics, often in the form of leftist politics. And so mainline denominations at the highest level, even among their clergy, at times in the pulpit, are bringing a leftist political idiom, and the message is get on board or get out. And this is why they have failed theologically, as you say, in terms of liberalism. It's because they have displaced the universality of the gospel, neither male nor female, slave nor free, Jew nor Gentile, with very partisan judgments, partisan politics, and they put those things in first rung where they simply don't belong.
Yeah,
it's a form of idolatry.
That's a very good point. By the way, for those just joining us, tell us the title of your book and why people should buy it. Go ahead.
Yeah, well, Power, Politics, and the Fragmentation of Evangelicalism, and I think they should buy it because they'll come to insight as to what's going on in these great cultural shifts that we're experiencing right now, and what's the direction of the church in the 21st century, especially in the evangelical community. And I just want to make sure that we, as evangelicals, do not commit the same kinds of errors and mistakes that mainline denominations and theological liberals have committed. They basically have taken on the narrative of democracy, a particular understanding of democracy, gussied it all up and said, here, this is the gospel.
Yeah, the gospel, you have to define, like you're talking about, what you mean by that, but the gospel message, first and foremost, is individuals can be saved from their sin and the consequences of that, which the Bible describes as hell, by giving their life to Jesus Christ and repenting. That's the primary definition of the gospel, is it not?
Yeah, I think that's a part of what the gospel is, the good news of the gospel, and you rightly affirm the personal dimensions of the gospel, that faith in Jesus Christ is tremendously transformative on a personal level in terms of the depth of our being, in terms of our heart, in terms of our will, in terms of our loves, our affections, all of these things, tremendous transformation. It also has outward expression.
Yes.
Because we are not individualistic. We are a part of the body of Christ, which is a community. And so the gospel, the good news of the gospel, will always have communal expression, corporate expressions. And Charles Finney, the 19th century evangelist, expressed this very well. He said that everywhere there is revival, there must also be reform. And so Finney held together both the personal and the social, and we need to do that today as well.
No, I agree with you 100%, and I think anyone who leaves out either one of those,
that's right,
is missing the mark when it comes to what the Bible teaches and expresses. But I just wanted to make clear people know that I understand that Jesus came to save people from their sin.
Absolutely,
absolutely. And then from that flows other parts of, quote, the gospel, which is Christian living, basically, is what we're talking about here. What is the proper role, Kenneth? Kenneth, by the way, is author of the book we're talking about today, which is called Power, Politics, and the Fragmentation of Evangelicalism. He is also a professor at Asbury Seminary in Kentucky. talk about what is the proper role for the Christian inside as it relates to politics, secular politics.
Right. First of all, I'd say that Christians are not second-class citizens. I'm a firm believer in the separation of church and state, but I'm not a believer in separation of church and culture. That Christians need to be active in the political dimensions of our society, expressing their moral judgments. They need to be active culturally in the arts, in literature, in newspapers, in journalism, in so many different ways. And so I think we need to be engaged and not remove ourselves from the public order and the body politic.
Well, I agree with what you said here. And, you know, some people accuse people like me of focusing and emphasizing politics, you know, too much. And that's, you know, you're taking away from the primary mission of what
The cross.
what Christianity should be about. And I respond to that. Well, first of all, if that's the case, I'm wrong. But I don't think I am, because I don't think that's what I or AFA or AFR is all about first and foremost. It's just like Kenneth said earlier. What flows out of our Christian faith and our relationship to the Lord is what the Bible talks about: righteous living and exalting the things of God, holiness, and the things that the Lord champions in His Word. So, you know, I also have a problem, Kenneth, with those who accuse us of that. You have some people who are themselves evangelicals, and I think they have this false piety where they say, you know, we shouldn't be involved in that political stuff because, you know, that's of the world, and that's even John MacArthur, who I respect on many levels,
Right.
great Bible teacher out of Southern California. He gets into this stuff, and I think he's in error when he starts, you know, criticizing groups like ours. I don't know if he's named ours by name, but saying basically what I'm saying now, that you're wasting your time. I've heard him say this.
Yeah.
You're wasting.
Take the example of John Wesley.
Yeah.
John Wesley, I think, is a good example of what we're both talking about here, and I think we are in agreement that Wesley, who emphasized the personal dimension of salvation more than Wesley?
Right.
But Wesley also wanted to reform the nation, and he loved his neighbor enough to become politically engaged. For example, Wesley wrote an important treatise against slavery, and he argued on the basis of natural law, that which pertains to all human beings as human beings. And he encouraged Wilberforce in Wilberforce's abolitionist efforts. And so there is a good example of an evangelical who is very much concerned about personal holiness to the extent of heart purity, and yet he is actively engaged with the public political order because of his love of his fellow neighbor, of his love of his neighbor.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So I mean, yeah, exactly. Good case in point right there. And what I'm saying is, folks, and see if this doesn't make sense to you. If we in America are a nation of laws, all right, and we have a government set up, all right, and you're going to suggest, you as a Christian leader are going to suggest that Christians don't need to be engaged, involved in this process and be in the political system itself. If you're going to say that's, you know, a waste of time, or Christians shouldn't be involved in that, that's moralizing, or that's trying to impose your religious views on people. No. What you're saying then is, okay, I believe that America is a nation of laws. Therefore, we have, who makes laws? Lawmakers make laws. City council, state legislature, Congress, White House, whatever. Those are the people who make laws. And if you're saying Christians need to stay away from that because it's a waste of time and it's not, quote, the gospel, what you're saying to me is that we're supposed to obey the laws that only the pagans can make. Now, how
And
much
then there's
how much
also-
sense does that make, Kenneth?
That's right. And there's also going on in our culture right now, there are many people outside the church who simply want